Welcome to So and So, brought to you by Bernina, made to create. I'm Meg Goodman, and you're about to enjoy a casual conversation with two special members of the sewist community. A conversation about how they got started, what inspires them, what excites them, and their connection to this community. Our guests today are Julian Collins and Monica Tetteh. Monica is known in the sewing community as That's So Monica and is the founder of BLkmakersmatter in Dallas, Texas. Julian is the creator behind Julian Creates and is also a founding member of BLkmakersmatter, and he's in Cincinnati, Ohio. Monica was born and raised in New York City with roots from Ghana, West Africa. She took up sewing to connect to her late mother, who also sewed. She has a passion for sewing and the sewing community. She's one of the owners of Sorority Wear, LLC, a sewing apparel company that provides paraphernalia and novelty items. Monica hosts a monthly sew-along called Sew Your View on Instagram, as well as a monthly in-person sewing meetup of all-day sewing with friends called Project Sew. This takes place in Dallas, Texas, and a few other cities. Julian works in public health, but loves to bring joy to the world through his colorful menswear creations by night. Having a passion for education, social justice, and diversity, he is also a founding member of BLkmakersmatter, a coalition founded to increase diversity and visibility among the sewing and crafting community. His work has been featured in multiple publications, including Sewn Magazine and Sew News. He's a Bernina and Laura Star ambassador and a current Fabric Mart fabricista. When he is not sewing, he loves connecting with people throughout the sewing community, especially in his Facebook group, So Manly. Hey, Monica and Julian, welcome to So and So.
Hi, Meg. How are you?
Hey, thank you so much for having us.
Oh, it's great to talk to you both. Now, you both obviously have a very deep passion for sewing. I want each of you to tell us how you learned to sew.
Well, I'll go first if that's okay. I learned sewing. I live in the Dallas, Texas area. And just to preface everything, as my mom sewed for years when I was growing up, my aunts, uncles, grandmother, a lot of my family members sew in Ghana, West Africa. That's one of the trades that they pick up. And growing up as a child, I would watch my mom sew. But she passed away, and on the 10-year anniversary of Mother's Day, I wanted to feel a connection to her. And I felt like if I picked up sewing, that would bring us a little bit closer so that I can connect and feel her a little bit more. So I decided to go online, Google, and I searched sewing classes in the Dallas, Texas area. And I came across the American Sewing Guild, the Plano American Sewing Guild. So I signed up immediately and took a 6-week introductory class. And that's history as you have it. I've been sewing ever since. And it's been almost 8 years now that I've been sewing. Go ahead, Julian.
So for me, I've always been fascinated by sewing. Also, I had that history of my grandmothers both being sewists as well as my mother, but did not really learn from them. I started college. My plan was to become a fashion designer, and just didn't work out for me then. I lasted maybe like a quarter in fashion design school before moving on to public health. But the draw to fashion, the draw to like creating garments really just kind of stuck with me. And I was on YouTube even before I started sewing, looking at people sew, watching videos on sewing machines and stuff like that. And then one day I finally kind of got up enough courage and picked up a used vintage machine and got a book as well as YouTube and got started.
I'm hearing a common YouTube theme from the two of you here.
Yes. Yes, I also went to YouTube University for some tips and tricks as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, you both are very accomplished in sewists. What type of projects do each of you like to do the most? Tell us about that.
Okay. Well, I love to focus on menswear. Kind of really enjoy sewing for myself. I do a little bit of everything. So, I have done quilting. I've done women's garments. I've costumed for weddings. but I really love focusing on menswear. So kind of classic styles with a bold um, take on fabric and print, especially using Ankara and other African textiles.
Hmm.
So for me, Julian mentioned Ankara. Knowing that I'm from Ghana, West Africa, I enjoy sewing with the bold and vibrant prints as well. When I started sewing, I wanted to sew long, flowy dresses so that I could cascade down the staircase. In in my loungewear, looking luxurious with the big sleeves and everything. So you'll tend to see some of that fun glam, but I sew about everything, but I truly enjoy women's and vacation resort wear style.
Have you been able to cascade down the stairs in any of your creations?
Oh yes, I have. I have, and I actually made a cascading gown, drape. What is it? Not a kimono, a duster
Hmm.
for a friend for her baby bridal like shoot. And she was cascading. I put it on first, and I cascaded down the staircase with all the. It was a trail with feathers. It was gorgeous, and I said yes,
See, yeah,
Beautiful.
you had to test it out.
yes.
Monica, you've said, and I'm going to quote you here. I never thought that I myself would pick up the sewing bug, and yet you've had a wonderful sewing journey. Tell us about some of those most memorable moments.
Oh, well, oh my gosh, yes. I never thought I would, watching my mom sew and everything. It was just kind of like, you're not going to sew, go ahead, go to school, do nursing, do the things that you need to do. But I always loved fashion. So one of my memorable, I would say, moments is just my first make. It was a tulle skirt and it was with the Plano ASG. And because of me, they put a rule in that no tool is allowed for your first project.
Uh-huh.
Because I mean, literally blood, sweat, and tears, and I almost gave up sewing. But I have the skirt to today. 8 years later, it sits here. It's a little torn because it's gotten torn throughout walking and just doing a whole bunch of things. But it's my memory because that was my first project of me not giving up. Um, but I'll just add another memorable moment is through sewing, I've been able to meet some fantastic people and, connect with them, not only online, but in person through our in person meetups.
So, then tell us more about Project Sew. What's that?
Yeah. So, well, I work for the city of Dallas. And when I was an event planner at the time, I now work in the marketing department fully. Um, they knew that I sewed, and we were looking to increase more community programming at one of our building areas in South Dallas. And they said, Monica, why don't you have your sewing friends come and you guys can sew all day once a month and increase more activity for people to sew and to learn to sew? And that's sort of how Project Sew started. It was a play on Project Runway, but Project Sew, and we would get together once a month on a Monday, and we would sew all day. And the Plano ASG members would come, and we would put it out as well as the community members. So I got to work and sew at the same time. So it was amazing. Um, and then when I moved to another position, we ended up moving it to Saturdays at a recreation center. So basically what we do is we get together, you pick your own project, or sometimes we work on the same project, and we come together in a large room and we all just sew for all day fun and sewing and gathering and talking all things sewing. So that's what Project Sew is.
So that's the community that we talk about on So and So. It's something bigger.
Yes. Yes.
Julian, your Facebook group, So Manly, is a passion for you because it reaches out and addresses men's inclusion in the sewing space for both cisgender and transgender. So, talk to us about this and how you want to affect change in perceptions.
Definitely. So, starting so manly, I wanted a place where people of all kind of walks um, can really share their makes, get support and tips around menswear and masculine inspired fashion. A lot of times in a lot of groups and in media and marketing and stuff like that, you're really seeing a focus on the feminine which is not a bad thing. I definitely think that I love all the women that I see in the crafting space, both cis and trans women. Um, but I think because we know that creativity and crafting and making is all encompassing and is so diverse as a community, I just wanted to highlight some of the other avenues that there are in the space. So with So Manly, really kind of showing that there are men who sew, who kind of just wanted to get some tips and tricks and did not want to share it on their main Facebook out of fear. They don't want the judgment from family members and friends of this new hobby that they're picking up. And we are definitely seeing those perceptions changing around sewing with things such as the Great British Sewing Bee and different things like that. But there's still a space where you can go for that support. You can go to really share your makes and just kind of give people an understanding of what else can be done around sewing. Even if you look at a lot of patterns and sewing machines and different things like that, everything skews towards the, for lack of a better term, girly. So you have a lot of flowers or a lot of light pastel colors, or most, if you look at it in any pattern catalog, you're going to see a lot more dresses, skirts, and women's tops and jackets than you're going to see any type of masculine wear. Um, and we really want to show people that people are also looking for that as well. I know in the group, there's always questions about people trying to find those patterns, trying to find tips, and trying to get an understanding of where they can go for good fabrics to use for men's pants and different things like that. To really also show that in the community and show the businesses that, hey, this is an avenue that we are also shoppers. We buy your stuff. Also think about us when you're making some of those decisions in your products, in your machines, and different things like that. Really just kind of opening up that conversation to a wider audience.
Now, you said perceptions are changing. Is the industry beginning to listen to you and make some of those changes?
I definitely think so. I think that it is, of course, it's like moving the Titanic. It's not going to be fast.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a slower moving journey, but we are seeing a pickup in more menswear patterns. You start seeing just a change in some of the nomenclature and the names. For a while there, a lot of machines were going by flower names or by certain jewels that are usually associated with women's jewelry. So some of those things we're starting to see change.
Mm-hmm.
Still slow, but I'm happy with the steps being taken, but I'm not going to stop. And I'm still going to press for more, of course.
It seems like there is room for a lot of change still to come, which is great. And your Facebook group, So Manly, is SEWMANLY.
Correct. And of course, everyone is invited. Um, just that was a play on words, but everyone is welcome.
Excellent. I want to talk about Black Makers Matter. You both are founding members, and this is a coalition of Black makers united to bring about and implement cultural transformation in the sewing and crafting industry. Monica, you've said about them, Black Makers Matter envisions a creative landscape that lovingly reflects Black makers, their voices, and their diversity within the maker community. Who is this group and what initiatives are you working on? And I know this is a passion for you both, so just take it away.
Oh, wow. Yes, you said the statement perfectly. We are a group of makers, actually, about 20 or so of us who got together to bring about that change. When George Floyd was killed, and we noticed that at the time that a lot of brands were stepping up for Black Lives Matter. We noticed that there was silence within a lot of the crafting brands that we all use and patronize. So at that time, I sent out a DM to a few people, just a little message, and said, "Hey, can we just show some sort of solidarity as Black makers and come together and just do something for a weekend or have a presence online to show that we're here, we exist, we support each other, and that we're truly wanting to see some change as it reflects to diversity, because the time was now. Because we've seen it for some time, but a lot of us have said it in different groups. But this was the first time I was able to kind of work to bring everybody together. So we got on a Zoom and we had a long, almost 3 hour Zoom, right, Julian?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that first one was pretty lengthy.
And it was very emotional because we all talked about our journeys within the sewing, within the crafting, the makers industry. And what started off as something to be for the weekend ended up being a full blown coalition. And we're about to celebrate 1 year of changing and making change within the community. Um, our initiative is just what our mission is to bring about cultural transformation. And one of the things that we did and we are doing is, and a lot of people are noticing it, is one, we're highlighting the voices of Black makers. We're showcasing that it's not just one or two that exist, that there are hundreds, thousands of us that are out there that are talented and that our work should definitely be seen and also credited. A few of the initiatives that we've done now are our Makers Monday, where we highlight on Mondays various makers within the community all across the United States, the country, as well as the world all over. And then on Thursdays, we take it back. We do a Throwback Thursday where we showcase past history of makers that were influential in many years past. One of the things that we're looking forward to is we've met with companies in the beginning. We grew really quickly on social media, like really quickly. And that kind of showed that this was needed. But there were other groups as well. So we met with a lot of companies and organizations, CEOs, and from major top companies, which we're meeting with now as well, to talk about diversity and how we can make the change and what are some things that we can do. So
Mm-hmm.
we're doing stuff behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see. But in the next couple of months, they'll be able to see some of the things that we've truly done and how we're being a voice for change and in the community.
Mm-hmm.
Our biggest thing definitely is that we were really wanting to make sure that the conversations were had around diversity. I think that for many, especially after George Floyd's death, we there was a pain there that we did not feel seen. Um, a lot, especially if at that time, I remember looking at a lot of the Instagram pages of a lot of different brands and different things like that, and a lot of brands were talking about the need for equity and inclusion and diversity, while other brands were they kind of skipped over it and went straight to pride, and wanted to celebrate those type of things. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is a heavy point in our country, and looking especially at the American pages, this is the heavy point that leads to more conversation. And I think that we were just saying like, hey, we want to make sure that you see us as well. This is something that there's people literally that are hurting. And if you're on our pages, if you're looking at our stuff, being here and being ourselves and putting on a smile and crafting and having that joy sometimes can be just in itself a political act. And we want to be felt visible. We don't want to just be given lip service for a day. We want to see some lasting change. That diversity is needed. Sometimes I would ask companies and ask people, what do you consider your audience? What do you consider your market? And a lot of times, it would not include me. And there comes a point as a Black queer man that I don't want to have to always squint to fit into somebody else's vision to make something work for myself. And people around our community should not have to do that. Yes, we're creators, but we should not have to try to always create something for us. We should be welcomed and we should feel included and seen in everything that we do. So, just as creators, I think we're just kind of using our own energies to create the world that we want to see that is inclusive of all people, all races, all nationalities, all bodies, all genders. Everything like that needs to be included in what we see in the crafting industry so that we can also see that in the world.
Monica, you said it's been about a year, and Julian, you said you weren't being seen. In that year, are you being seen more now?
Definitely starting to see those changes. Of course, again, it's hard to move the Titanic. It's not going to be quick, but even just kind of in some of the had in brands, we started to see the use of more models of different ethnicities and different bodies. We're starting to see that in a lot of branding from companies as well, from your craft stores to your fabric stores. People are getting just that more being noticed who had interest of working with different companies and working in the community. You're starting to see that pick up more, but you're also, I think, having good conversations. I think that a lot of times there is this whole idea that this should only be about craft and there should not be any talks about anything else. But sadly, for many of us, our there can't we cannot go around our lives without thinking about us not being in the like dealing with inequities on a daily, sometimes hourly basis. Um, and so to ask for us to have an erasure of that means that you're trying to have us to have an erasure of part of our beings. So to really have a conversation that, hey, all of us, should be able to come into these spaces being our full selves and being accepted as our full selves. Just having those moments where people are able to be fully included and be able to fully express themselves is necessary. Now, of course, there's still work to do. And though, our coalition is definitely Black Makers Matter, but of course, we still stand with other nationalities, especially the Asian and Pacific Islander community, as the conversations need to be had because everybody needs to be included in our community at
Yeah.
all times.
Yeah, and I'll also add to everything Julian said, is that we are seeing that change. It does take time, and we always say that this is a movement, not a moment. And change does not happen overnight. But I think what I'm starting to see is more intentional focus, and it's not the performative where, oh, we just have that one person and that person fits the box. Brands are actually being more intentional with wanting to make that change. And then from that are really truly calling, asking, how can they be more inclusive? One of the
Mm-hmm.
things that we're serving as, because we get emails and messages all of the time from companies who say, well, we are looking for some additional makers. We're looking to be inclusive. We don't know where to find them. Can you help? And we're turning into sort of consultants in a way,
Mm-hmm.
where we're sharing, our list, because we put together a listserv of makers that want to either be noticed by brands, that want to have that interaction. So we send that information to them. And then as information comes to us or opportunities, we do that. So one of the major things that I know, and Julian mentioned as well, is the ambassadorships for a lot of the sewing machine companies, because that was one of the things you did not see that many of us in them. And more recently, BERNINA is one. I don't know if I can mention the other ones, but
Absolutely.
Janome is one. They took this. They took a step to actually talk about and bring about change, and they were hit with backlash when they were meeting with us. And that was interesting to see
Hmm.
that we were talking about Black Makers Matter and how it formed, but not seeing the bigger picture that as Black makers, sometimes we don't feel welcome in certain spaces. Even with me and the American Sewing Guild, it's not that many of us, but we all come together and we welcome each other. And you want to know that when you look at sewing from any age group and any demographic, that you're welcome, and it's not just this one. We met with a company at one point, and they even said it that they advertise to white young women. The Coachella type of young lady is the person that they're marketing to. And we were like, well, what about us? We're
Yeah.
older. We may not be going to Coachella. Some of us are younger, but we dress for the working style, or we tend to do a variety of things. What about the men? So that was like, wait, they didn't think about that. So it was just opening their eyes and talking to them more about their branding, how they look at things, and being more intentional. So those are the things that we're starting to see and have seen, and it just makes us smile inside. I'll be very honest.
Definitely.
Monica, you mentioned that you have a list of makers who are willing to go out and speak and get involved. If people want to contact you about that, how can they find this list or get a hold of you? I think this is important.
Yes, they can email us at blkmakersmatter@gmail.com. And then also, if they go to our Instagram page, they will see there's a link to the makers list of allies as well as Black businesses and people who support our initiatives. We are to embark on our 1 year anniversary. We're going to officially have a website, and all of this information will be on there very, very soon, which will be at blackmakers.com. That's the information for right now that I can provide. But if they were to DM us or send us an email, we're always responding as expeditiously as we can, knowing that we all have full-time jobs. We get right back to it. And it's a Black Makers, BLK Makers Matter @gmail.com.
You mentioned something about allies, and I'd like to talk about that for a minute. Talk to us about what an ally is, what they do. It's more than just saying, "Oh, sure, I support you," but to honestly be a real ally. What does that mean?
To honestly be a real ally is you have to support, but there's also work that's involved with that. So a lot of times it's having the conversations with your circle of influence, with the people that you kind of work with. Um, as we saw a lot with the working for social justice and working for more equity around the country, that a lot of Black people, of course, were talking, were protesting, different things like that, but people were not always listening. Sometimes it requires somebody from a person that somebody knows. So a white person talking to another white person to help change their mind there, because there's a better connection there sometimes than with somebody who does not look like them, that does not have the same cultural background. So it's really about having those conversations and being a part of the conversation. And while being part of the conversation, there's definitely a need to have that balancing act. Definitely talk, definitely be of support and be part of the conversation, but it's also important not to take over. We want to make sure that people of color and um, minority communities and communities that are really fighting for justice have their voices heard, and are not sampled or not their words taken out of context or changed or anything like that. So it's really important to be willing to do the work. I think that now that we are kind of a year into this part of the process, so we're starting to see some fatigue sometimes, and this is one of those things that this is not, as Monica said, this is a movement, not a moment, and this cannot be done in a day. It's because we have a judgment in a court trial does not mean that everything ends. There's still work that needs to be done on a daily basis until we have full equity among all. So really being willing to have the conversation, and it does not always have to be you yelling at somebody or having like that angry tone or judgmental tone. It can literally be a simple conversation. It can literally be using a person's proper pronouns a lot of times, can just be very important. Just even some of those simple things. I think we all need to realize that there are multiple roads in this journey. Not everybody has to take the same one. And you have to do what you feel that you can do comfortably, um, and that you can execute well. So if you feel that you are not the person to be on the front lines at every march, that's okay. There's still work that you can do as well.
And can I add to something you said, Julian?
Hmm.
Because I think that it's important too that many people have platforms. So when we're seeing things happen, for instance, in Facebook groups or on Instagram, and even when we had brands put Black Makers Matter, just the logo up, there were a lot of talk, and there were a lot of hurtful comments. And as allies, that's where they could come in and say, well, no, we're not gonna do this. Either shut that down and say that's not welcomed here. Why do you have that view? Why do you have that stance? If we're trying
Hmm.
to be a welcoming, inclusive group or organization or just community as a whole. And I think it's important that our allies utilize their platform, speak up in places that we may not be, to say that. And that's one of the things that I will say that I love seeing over the past year and that I continue to see. And we have some great champions. And then there were those who were like, you know what? I don't know what to do. I've never thought about it. And, I don't see race, but I realized that I wasn't even marketing to a diverse audience. How can I change? How can I help? How can I support? So those questions were that was to me, that was allyship as well.
Definitely. I think what people realize that there are people here who desire that conversation. They want to learn, and now there's a caveat to that. In wanting to learn, not everybody's going to teach you.
Yes.
You definitely need to be willing to put in the work to find out the information for yourself. But there are people. I'm one of those people who I like having the conversation. I like having that discourse and learning about other cultures and learning about other people's experiences in that. And I don't mind having those conversations, but don't think everybody is me. um, you gonna go to the. I don't want you to talk to somebody and then they bite your head off because that's not where they are in the journey. So it's good to be willing to be vulnerable and say that you don't know. But also be willing to learn and listen. Those are also very important parts of allyship. And then taking what you learn here and don't just keep it to yourself. You do then need to share it, and making sure that your kids know about it, making sure that people around you know about it, um, and start to like instill those values of equity and inclusion among all is important.
It seems what I'm hearing you both say is that there could be some discomfort in this, but people need to be comfortable in that discomfort and see that as moving forward together.
Yes.
Definitely. And it kind of the way that I think about it is that we all had when we first started sewing, most of us were a little nervous and a little apprehensive and scared because it was something that we didn't know what we were doing. And if you were starting with a sewing machine, there's a needle and a lot, and it goes fast, and you think that you can sew through your hand. But you didn't stop. You kept going. You took your time. You kind of sometimes had to back away for a second, take a breath, but you kept going. Similar to that is kind of that journey through allyship.
Mm.
It can be uncomfortable, and sometimes you don't know where you're going or how it's fully going to end up. But you can take your time. There are people there that you can ask for help. There are people there that you can have
Mm-hmm.
conversations with and learn more, so that you can get better as the journey goes on.
Yeah. And I see it like, with sorority, our one of our missions and our motto is sewing is the thread that brings us all together. Um and it's that thread as well as makers, our hands, our whatever we're quilting, whatever we're making, we're painting, all of those supplies come together to make that one masterpiece that we're all proud of. And that's sort of how I see allyship as well.
I've heard that you're talking about diversity, inclusion, and equity. Inclusion means everybody gets to sit at the table. Equity means everybody gets served the same meal and has the same voice. Is that
Mhm.
is that a good way to listen or understand?
Yes.
So similar to that, but as we're talking about, everyone gets to have the same meal and have the same voice. Um, Sometimes that falls into equality. Equity is that we also allow people to who have not been able to get fed for a while to get what they need so that they can be at the same level.
Hmm.
We're trying to make sure that everybody is kind of at that same level because we know for so long in this country there have been communities that were not able to have a voice. So we're trying to really kind of bring bring the field to a level place again, where it has not been for so long.
Monica,
Yes.
what's your dream for Black Makers Matter?
Well, oh my gosh. It's a big dream now, now that we're going and embarking on the year, and I actually see it becoming an organization. So we will be an organization, we will have a website. We will actually, I'm hoping that we'll have a conference in the near future where we can continue to talk about diversity and inclusion, but where all of the makers are celebrated, as well as a marketplace similar to Etsy, but a marketplace for us and possibly even a camp so that we can give back to the young generation so that those who are up and coming and for aspiring makers, that they can learn from and participate and learn about the culture and the history and the vibrancy of crafting, making, sewing, and all of those things entail. And then possibly even a scholarship program. So I see Black Makers Matter continuing to be a force within the community, uh, a large organization that will hit multiple cities with various chapters. But I see so many different things, and it's interesting that you asked that, because I didn't see that when I first sent the DM. It was just, oh, this weekend and go back to your regular life. But
there is no such thing.
There is no such thing. And as we start to see and things change, members who are here who are like, oh my God, I thought it was just a weekend thing too. And they have things going on in their lives. I see us bringing in more people to come involved, and that it grows to really truly change that landscape. And we're not going to be done until we truly effectively do that.
Julian, same question for you.
I definitely can see us continue with the conversations. I think that there is space and room to really do some of those trainings and having some of those difficult conversations, but around crafting. So let's come together and pull out, and let's do a quilt together or something like that, where we're also having the difficult conversations, sharing those life experiences that other communities may not have in the same way. Definitely see us kind of working with youth and building up that next generation of makers. Um, Also, just kind of making sure that we're increasing that visibility amongst community members and working with other communities and organizations as they do the same. I think this is, as we kind of have a place here, we also can support other communities as they're starting to have the same conversations, because we're all trying to reach the same goal. Um, but I am excited for all the things that we are thinking of. Again, we did not think we would be here when after that first DM, and like literally after that first post, we thought like, okay, yeah, we'll do this, and it really grew into so much more. And I'm very thankful for Monica for including me and having the vision to go this far and really kind of steering the way as we continue to go, and for all the lovely women that I am in this coalition with. Like I said, I am a cheerleader for women, so especially for Black women, and so I'm there to support in any way, shape, or form or possibility. And as we had a meeting this week, and I said I want to celebrate you, even if it is just if your nails grew a half an inch. So it's all about celebration. I think that's one of the great things about this community is that there's so much support here.
Yeah.
And now that we are having the open conversations, it can lead to so much more.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to see what's next for us.
Yes.
Now we looked at Black Makers Matter. I want to ask each of you, Monica and Julian, what's next for you personally, and what's your dream?
Wow.
No small questions on so and so.
Did you want to go first, Julian?
I'll let you go first.
Well, for me, I am embarking on teaching now a little bit. I decided after COVID and everything to start dabbling into this teaching a little bit of my sewing skills. But I started a new business called Living the Ankara Life, where I merged the love of my African prints and heritage of being from Ghana, West Africa, with my love of sewing and DIY. So I'm excited about that. I see myself turning into sort of a lifestyle brand, but where I'm working with community as well. I have a sewing conference that I've been planning now. COVID kind of put a wrench in that. So I'm looking forward to having that, and then just working more within the community as a whole and trying to get more people to sew. And then possibly, I'm not even sure if I could say this, leaving my full-time job to work on Black Makers Matters initiatives, and as well as my own personal brand.
All right.
Oh, and a pattern and patterns. Yes. And I'm coming out with some patterns.
Just one more thing.
One more thing.
Well,
drum roll, please.
There are, of course, a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes that I can't talk about yet, but I'm very excited for them. Hopefully, a lot more teaching. I definitely want to um, provide knowledge and provide just that example that a cisgender man who is more masculine presenting can be a sewist. And you don't have to be. This literally sewing is for everyone. So, kind of just sharing that message around not only the country but hopefully the world. Um, I see myself hopefully bringing out patterns as well. Um, that's some years away. That ain't
Mhm.
like this year.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit further. But definitely wanting to kind of get into that space a little bit more, but really focusing on teaching and bringing communities together. I think that is something that I thrive in and I excel at. So doing that, but hopefully this year I'll be making some big
Ooh.
splashes that you'll be able to see.
We'll
Splash,
look forward to
splash,
that.
splash, 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 splash. And the Julian
So,
and Monica show coming soon.
I can
Right.
absolutely see that. I can. Um, so this is the point where you both get to take over the podcast. So we've talked about a lot of things here, and I'm just going to throw this out there. What question didn't I ask you that you wish I had?
Probably, and this is just a fun question. Um, a sewing horror story.
Okay.
That's
So do tell us.
so. Oh, I mean, there could be many, but probably the one that comes to mind right now is we are of course filming this around Mother's Day, and I am making my mother a dress, and the fabric that I have that she requested that I've had for a while is stained and has stains on it. So trying to make it work, um, to fussy cut around these stains, it definitely has been a fun jigsaw puzzle. That's probably one of them. Of course, another question, of course, is I love sewing machines. So how many sewing machines do I have?
Oh, Lord.
How many do you have?
Hundreds.
No, I think we're currently at around 35 sewing machines.
I was close.
Okay.
Yeah, 35 with seven. I think seven Berninas currently.
My goodness.
I have my brand preference there.
We see.
So, Monica, what didn't I ask you?
I think you asked everything because I was an open book. So I kept talking and asking and giving you more questions to ask as I talk. I don't have the sewing horror story and good story is the same. The tulle skirt, that was the fun one. But no, I'm looking around here in my sewing room. Other than that, hopefully I can get a new house so I can put more of this stuff in it.
Bigger house with more room to sew.
Yes, yes. That's exactly what I need.
Well, Monica and Julian, this has been so much fun. It's been the first episode of the Julian and Monica show.
Oh, yes.
So now you've you've done this, and I want to thank you for sharing your time and your stories with us today. If any of our listeners would like to reach out to you, you've talked about some ways to resource some of the content and information you have. But if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do so?
For me, it's Monica, Monica at THATS, SEW, Monica.com. So Monica, that's Monica.com. And then, of course, with the Black Makers Matter at gmail.com, you can reach out to me there.
Hey, Julian.
For me, definitely you can find me at Julian Creates, JULIAN Creates, on Instagram, on Facebook, and on YouTube. If you want to, that's usually the easiest way to to message me. Shoot me a DM or something like that there. Definitely check out the group So Manly on Facebook. And yeah, you can also reach out to me as well on at blkmakersmatter at gmail, or on the Black Makers Matter page. We are two of the people who, when you send us a message, we will be the ones answering for you.
Oh, and let me add my social media. Why did I forget? Yeah, my social media. That's So Monica, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. And then, of course, patronize sorority wear, and Project Sew, and Sew Your View.
There you go.
Yeah, I have no doubt you'll be hearing from people. No doubt. I want to thank you both. This has been a lot of fun today. Thank you for joining us on So and So.
Yes, no, thank you, Meg, for taking the time. Yes, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Well, there you have it. Another story about people just like you. People for whom sewing is so much more than a hobby. It's a way of life. It's a connection to something bigger. If you know someone you think has an outstanding story, a story that should be shared on this podcast, please drop me a note to megoodman@theflintrock.com and put "You should hear their story" in the subject line. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and visit our website, soandsopodcast.com, for more information about today's and all of our guests. That's SEWANDSO podcast.com. And finally, I want to thank BERNINA for making this program possible. I'm Meg Goodman, and I look forward to you joining us next time on So and So.